All right, so tonight's topic is grab their attention with your 15-second commercial. Now, last week we talked about your personal and borrowed story, and this is an integral piece. Everything that we're talking about is just more setting the stage for success. All of these pieces integrate into the GPS selling system. They're all intricate little pieces of that GPS selling system. The GPS selling system that we've adopted is kind of your roadmap. It is your rules of engagement and how do we go in and how do we get this done. What we're doing with setting the stage for success is we're breaking down some of the individual components that you will find spoken about in the GPS selling system to have you have more of a holistic view of how these pieces come together to fit with that GPS selling system. So we started with starting point, whom do I start, your name list. Last week was personal and borrowed story and how to develop that in some good ways. And tonight we're going to go through, how to develop a strong 15-second commercial. So with that, in review, create your name list. We're going to probably say that on every single call. I don't care if you have been in direct sales for 6 months or you've been in it for 30 years. Steve said it last week and he said it before. Every new business he went into, every time he got stale, he would sit down and write out a name list. So that's always your first step. Create a list of people you know. You may even determine other ways to prospect and meet client and agent prospects through this process. You may meet a prospective agent or client anywhere. This applies to what we call the 3-foot rule of talking about how excited you are with the program, what it's done to change your life or change other people's lives. Now what? What do we do if we're doing that type of information? How do you start that conversation that matters? How do you get that client to want to hear what it is you have to say? So moving into that, what is the most common question you receive when you first meet someone? And it's a very clear answer, and that answer is, what do you do for a living? It just seems to be something that rolls off of people's tongues. Hey, it's nice meeting you, Jay. Hey, Jay, by the way, what do you do for a living? Well, that is your introduction for that 15-second commercial, because you don't want to just say something flat. I help people eliminate debt. I work with a program that helps people eliminate debt. You have to have some excitement. You have to have some creativity in this. So you need to engage your prospect in a very short period of time. And the reason this is so important is we've determined, especially with the advent of social media, with having smartphones on just about everybody, immediate access to data and information, we're finding a couple things are truly happening, and these are being addressed, through Psychology Today magazines and being addressed in medical journals, is that people's attention span has become much shorter because they can get rapid-fire information so quick. And the other thing is that their memory, people don't have the same kind of memories like we used to have 20 years ago, where you'd have 200 phone numbers memorized in your head of all the people you knew in your neighborhood. You probably had your Social Security remembered, probably had your bank account number remembered, and probably had quotes and passages and all this stuff remembered. Well, people don't operate that anymore. They go to the smartphone, they look it up, they have the information, they forget about it, and they move on to the next thing. So if that is the case, it is very important, your physical stance, your confidence, your language that you use, how do you present the material, your syntax, I guess would be a better word for that, your positioning of the product, how do you carry yourself, how do you present yourself. This area here may not sound like it's a big deal, but how you carry yourself and how you present yourself. I remember a guy that came to work for our company, and he didn't know who I was, and we were outside in the parking lot, and he says, so what do you do for the company? And so I was explaining, and he goes, oh, so you're the vice president of sales, and he all of a sudden stopped himself and says, I should have realized that just by looking at your shoes. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous to some people, but there's an old saying, the clothes make the man. And if you show up for an appointment and you're rumpled and frumpled and you got wrinkles all in your clothing, it looks like you kept them under your bed before you came there, and you show up in a car that the fender's fallen off and the interior's all trashed, that is going to leave a taste in the client's mouth. Now, obviously, if you're doing a webinar, you can be wherever you want. Just make sure from the waist up, if you're actually letting them see your face in a Zoom meeting or whatever, that you have on a professional shirt, maybe a sport jacket for ladies, a nice blouse. Your presentation, your appearance, your language really does matter to the client. And being able to relate to their past experiences and their memories, being able to draw that information. And the only way we get that information is by asking questions of the client. Steve, I know one thing about you is you're always dressed to the T, you're always groomed well, you always present yourself in a very professional manner. I feel the same way. And Steve, I just have to ask this question, is that a learned thing, or is that something you were raised to be that way?
Look, I'll tell you, when I got into the insurance business right at 40 years ago, I didn't know anything about sales. I didn't know anything about recruiting, or, I really didn't. I mean, I had been working construction, and that's what daily dress was. And so, sometimes people don't know, and some people do, but some people don't. And, it's not, let's say that there's a meeting that's going to be happening, and, that the company's holding a training meeting or something. There's nothing wrong with telling your team or people in a very polite way, hey, this is going to be business casual. Some people may not know what that is. Some people may not know that, and they show up in shorts, and stuff like that. Not be their fault. But we always want to try to be somewhat professional looking. Of course, sometimes you might be with a friend or something like that, and you'd be more relaxed, and, maybe that's the situation. But I think what it does for you as a person, it makes you feel better about yourself. For some reason it does. And so I think those little things that you learn along the way really are helpful. May not think they're big, but they're helpful along the way.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. I'm glad you said that it makes you feel better, and it gives you more confidence about how you approach people. And
Absolutely.
Through that, if you're doing it on a webinar or something like that, get creative with your responses. Make them engaging. Make them concise. Be confident with your language. And how do we become confident with this product? By listening to the presentations over and over again, by purchasing the product and being a product of the product, by selling it to someone else and have success. Confidence, I can tell you right now, confidence outweighs language any day of the week, because you may not be the best speaker or the most concise speaker or a wordsmith, but if you present the material to an individual in a very confident manner, not a cocky manner, but a confident manner, it almost makes you a little bit bulletproof. And when people approach you confidently but not cocky, we tend to listen a little bit deeper to what they have to say. So, get creative in these responses and be confident in what it is that you're doing with that client, because confidence means so much. This commercial is meant to
entice. If I'll say something on that, you're talking about confidence. That's part of the reason that and I try to explain to people as I talk to them about our training sales and why we require that and why it's so important. And because and then, people need to do, if they're going to be a trainer, they want to be a trainer, and they need to do 2 sales on their own. So what we're trying to do is really just give them that confidence that they need, that, hey, I am doing this right. When I get on, either on a live situation or maybe on a webinar type situation, you come across with that confidence that you need to. And that's why we feel it's so important to go those training sales and to do those sales on your own, to get it down and know how to, do the PayPal and how to make sure that that's done correctly and how to do the analysis and all those little things, part of how you're going to come across to the person on the other end you're talking about their money, and that's a pretty important thing to them. So confidence is a key part of your business.
Yeah, and then, I'm going to pause after each statement from Alan, Steve, just so you can jump in, because the one thing I do know, Steve and I have some very strong similarities, but we have some very strong differences as well. And in that context, I think you get the best of both worlds with both of us doing these calls together. I've not seen yet anything that I've ever said that Steve couldn't add something to it that I wasn't thinking. And I think that is a big piece as well with doing the training sales, is you may be thinking about information from one perspective, but then listening to somebody do the presentation and going through that, you're learning a different perspective and a different language. And there's an old saying that a wise man will circle himself with people of different belief systems and different perspectives. Because if you're just stuck in your own mind and your own perspective, you'll never be able to think outside of the box. So when you're doing these training sales and when you're going through these processes, try not to say, because I hear this all too often, agents go, man, I didn't like when he said that, and I didn't like when he said that. Try to find what you do like, not what you don't like. And it may not be that what they said was a like or a not like, it just didn't fit your personality, but it got the job done. So thank you for putting my mind in that perspective as well, Steve. And so getting this prospect's attention is meant to entice the prospect to ask for more information. That's what your 15-second commercial is truly all about, is trying to entice them to want more information. And make sure that your 15-second commercials match your personality. You don't want to be, rolling something off of your tongue that doesn't fit the way you speak, because it'll come across choppy. If you need to change some words, change some language, move a couple things around in there. We're going to give you some examples here in just a moment, quite a few examples of some good, strong 15-second commercials. But we want you to know that these are not set in stone. You need to make it fit your personality and fit what is comfortable for you, just in context of language, because we all know doing direct sales takes getting out of our comfort zone. Steve, you have anything on that?
I was just going to say, when you're talking about, enticing or getting the prospect to ask for more information, I know every time that I've been in an event that Dr. Chris has been at, I learned one thing that he said, that when he was practicing, chiropractics, is that he listened. And that's how he knew what was wrong with the person. And we've got to do that. Sometimes as we gain more information as an agent, sometimes we feel like we've got to tell everybody everything that they know. Well, that's not usually the case. The case is find out how they feel. Do the analysis, give the presentation, and then listen and find out what people think and ask them more questions and entice them to but if you're always doing the talking, how can they say what might be on their mind? Or you might lose a sale, or you might lose a recruit. You didn't give them the opportunity to talk. And look, what they have to say is the most important thing. Always remember that. That's how people feel. They feel what they have to say is the most important, so always be willing to listen and ask those questions that are important.
All right. Excellent. Excellent piece there, Steve. Thank you. Your first step is always your list, okay? So which has better impact? I help people get out of debt, or I help people take control of their financial future? This is where we're going to start. I just want you to look at just the language of those two statements, and I want you to think to yourself, what would grab your attention a little bit more? I help people get out of debt, or I help people take control of their financial future. For me, it's the latter. I help people take control of their financial future, because that leaves the curiosity, well, how do you do that? when you say I help people get out of debt, a lot of people may just be, well, you supply loans or consolidations, and they kind of turn you off. But I help people take control of their financial future is very open-ended, that I could be an investor, I could be, a stockbroker, I could be a financial planner, I could be an insurance agent, I could be a banker. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So it opens up an avenue of curiosity. And the one thing that I do know about people, when you open that avenue of curiosity, it is very, very hard for that client to be able to shut down that curiosity. They will typically want to know more. So do know that while, confidence is probably one of the most important things, I would say in moving forward, that your wording and language and your posturing are critical. It has to roll off your tongue. You can't. There's something I used to tell people. The worst sound that can ever come out of a salesman's mouth is that pause, that you don't know what you're talking about, that you're searching for that information. And we'll go through that a little bit deeper, but your wording, your language, and your posture are very critical. Think about the last time you were approached and what worked and what didn't. Because I think every single one of us has been in front of a pushy salesman before, or been in front of somebody that we knew, you know what, you just don't know what you're talking about there. It just doesn't seem like you got this down. It's almost like you're trying to convince yourself while you're talking to me. Practice your commercial with friends and family and ask for their feedback. Ask for critique. Invite their opinion, their perspective into what it is that you're saying. Steve?
Mac, I was going to this because I can remember, when I first got in the business, I just didn't know. We were taught the same thing. These things that we're going over tonight, they're not new. These are all important keys to helping all of us to be better at what we do. I remember years and years and years ago, you need to go home and you need to sit down, you need to practice your presentation, even if you do it to yourself, you give it to the dog or you give it to the kids or whatever you do, and it kind of making it light, but at the same time, we took it very serious. Folks, I don't know how many times, hundreds, literally, of times over my career, especially in the beginning, I would do a presentation to myself. I'd sit down at the kitchen table and I'd go through that presentation. And I'd start over and I'd do it again. Then I'd try to find somebody that would listen to me. Get your upline. That's part of their job, is to help you. You say, listen, can we set up a time where I can do my presentation and you can watch that? Now, of course, it's always best if you have a client in front of you. But look, if you're trying to put that and get it down, that's what you should be learning how to do. And you as a manager, you should be practicing with your people and hear their presentations, especially if they're not closing sales. There's a reason they're not recruiting. There's a reason they're not closing sales, because they're saying something wrong or they're not saying something. So I think this is a great point, Mac, that you put here. Practice, practice, practice. You can't do it enough.
Yep. And there's not a doubt. I mean, I've been in the sales industry, and both of us have been trainers. And I remember in some of my, when I was in training capacities, I would force salespeople to give me their pitch, so to speak. I would force them to create language, and I would critique it for them. But the people that were above me, I would go to them with what I was saying and have them critique me as well. So it's something that if you want to really get good at your craft, have other people critiquing what it is that you're doing. I know it's a little embarrassing. I know sometimes it could say, yeah, right, I'm going to have somebody critique me. Say it to your wife. Say it to your best friend. Just see how it comes across, how it hits their ears. Say it to your upline. Great points there, Steve. So 15-second commercials and examples. Okay, so the first example we're going to give you is, I have the best job in the world. I'm helping people take control of their finances and their futures. and I earn great money doing it part-time. Does that sound like something that would interest you? It's non-intrusive, it's very open, and it's very short and concise and to the point. You can get that out in 15 seconds. Now, you have to think for yourself. Like I said, we're going to give you a few examples here, but you have to think for yourself which examples fit your personality the best, and these are not written down in stone. So if you need to modify some words so it's more to your language, but we're going to give you a lot more of these. I've got quite a few examples here for you this evening. So if they respond favorably, to your commercial, you always want to respond with what part of that interests you, taking control of your finances in your future or earning great money. In all of these 15-second commercials, if they respond favorably, you want to ask them, what about what I just said to you appeals to you? Why does that appeal to you, okay? And so example number 2. Now, this is one that I actually know the person that created this. I know that this sounds really cheeky. It's not something that I used personally, but I actually witnessed this person utilizing this, and it would make people laugh. And I got to tell you, if you can make a person laugh before you ever tell them about anything, you've already kind of got them on their side, because all of those blast shields, all of those defenses, all those brick walls come down because now they're enjoying it. And they're like, what? So this one is, I'm in the parole business. Lenders and mortgage brokers have been handing out 15, 30, and even 40-year sentences. We, on the other hand, are paroling our client in as little as 1/3 to 1/2 that time. Would you like to know more about it? So when you're giving your 15-second commercial, you always want to have, the statement and then kind of a call to action statement. You could stop that one right there at, 1/2 the time and just see what they, say. Well, wow, that sounds really interesting. What do you mean you're in the parole business? The person I heard deliver this, we all know him, Steve, it's Chip Robinson. And I can remember numerous times Chip being in an elevator and just starting up a conversation, and somebody say, well, what do you do for a living? And he'd rattle this off, and they'd kind of snicker and giggle and go, what do you mean? So it would create that immediate curiosity. But I tell you what, you have to have a good sense of humor and a good personality that can pull off delivering this. This one's kind of a tongue-in-cheek, a little bit cheeky. So just be careful with that if that's not your normal personality. This may not be the best one for you. All right, so this is the one that I like the most, and I give credit where credit is due, and I want this individual to know the credit goes to them where this is concerned. So I'm going to give the credit. This came up from Dr. Joan Hackenstad. This is where I took this setup for 15-second commercials, which is, well, you know how, a problem, and then, well, what you do, a solution. And I think that formula, if you just kind of keep it in mind, you could see it in the other two, that we did. The first two that we did, 30-year sentences, and the solution is we're paroling them, or best job in the world, and I'm doing it part-time, and I'm earning great money. So this formula of, well, you know how, problem, well, solution. So first one here is, well, you know how many people here in wherever, USA, are upside down on their mortgages. Well, I show people how to build equity in the shortest time frame possible given their financial situation. That's a pretty strong statement that is short, concise, and to the point. But again, you have to see if that fits your language. But just remember, problem, solution. Well, you know how most Americans are overpaying on their mortgages and other debt, usually in the form of interest. Well, I show people how to keep more of their hard-earned money in their pockets while they pay down the mortgages and other debt in a fraction of the time. Now, you can elaborate in here. You could say things like, in my world, I see people are just way overpaying. The banks are making too much money off of us. The mortgage companies are making too much money, and where they make all that money is the interest they charge us and the lack of interest they pay us. Well, I show people how to keep more of their hard-earned money in their own pockets and how to pay down their mortgages and other debts in a very rapid time without changing their lifestyle. You know, you can move these and kind of morph these and mold these to fit your personality. So let's move in, and then Steve, what I'm going to do is at the very end of these, I'm just going to let you come in and kind of talk a little bit about each example, because these I just want to kind of deliver as they are. And so 15-second commercial examples, number 5 and 6. Well, you know how, problem solution. Well, you know how banks use banking strategies in order to make a huge profit. Well, I show people how to incorporate these same strategies into their own financial world so the average person can make their money work for them 24/7. You could even reword that and say, you know, the banks have figured out how to make money work 24/7 through strategies that they incorporate for huge profits. I show people how to incorporate these same strategies into their own financial world to their advantage. So you see how you could take any of these and reword them a little bit. We're just trying to give you a format for problem solution, quick to the point, something that's enticing, something that's creative. And here's another thing. The point of the 15-second commercial is telling somebody what you do without telling them you have a job. Like, I'm a mechanic, I'm a school teacher, I help people get out of debt, I'm a mortgage broker. You want it to be creative, you want it to be open, you want it to create a curiosity inside the client where they just can't help but saying, well, how do you do that? Or can you tell me a little bit more about that? Or that sounds interesting. Well, you know how most people spend most of their life in debt, paying on things like credit cards, auto loans, student loans, and even mortgages forever. Well, I showed people how to beat the banks at their own game and pay those off as quickly as possible. I love what Richard Schaefer says many times. He says, we spend our life going to work at a job that we can't stand to earn money, to buy stuff we don't need, to impress people we don't like. That's just mind-boggling to me. And when you think about condensing it down to that, that really is what it comes down to. We spend our lives working a job, 40 hours a week, busting ourselves, busting our knuckles, at a job maybe we don't even really care about, to buy stuff we don't really need, to impress people we don't really need to impress. So that could be worked into any of these, but this one in particular is why the insanity. You can even throw in there, you know, Albert Einstein said the definition of insanity was doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I show people how to beat the banks at their own game. We don't have to play their game. We have a solution to a problem. The problem is how the banks do business. The solution is the Money Max Account program. All right, so I'm just going to throw a couple 15-second shorts at you here real quick. A couple more ideas that you can incorporate. They ask you what you do for a living. Well, I'm a bank strategist, a banking strategist. I'm a debt buster. I'm an interest cancellation expert. With each of these, you could say I'm a banking strategist. You know how the banks, and go back into one of those short, or you could just say it that way, I'm a banking strategist. Well, what exactly does that mean? That leaves an open end. There's a curiosity. I'm a debt buster. Nobody's ever heard of a debt buster. They've heard of Ghostbusters. But a debt buster, what does that mean? Interest cancellation expert. Now, people, that gets a lot of people's attention. Interest cancellation expert. What in the world is that? How do you do that? How about this? Debt to wealth expert. I show people how to transform their debt into wealth. I help people take control of their financial future. This one is real good for a lot of people if you're a little more delicate and maybe you don't like aggressive conversation. You know, I'm a school teacher, I'm a mechanic, I'm a police officer, I'm an insurance broker, you know, whatever. I'm whatever, but my passion is helping people take control of their financial future. My passion is helping people beat the banks at their own game. My passion is showing people how to bank like a bank. So just think about these words and these languages that we're giving you and the way that you would normally interact with somebody and what gets the best result for you. Get creative, have fun, give enough to get people curious, but not enough so they won't ask for more information. This is the key to that 15-second commercial. It is absolutely less is more. Keep it simple and don't become a fire hydrant. Steve?
Mac, I guess one of the, as we wrap up here, I really like the simple things. And folks, I think you made a great point. You've got to use your personality to these things. Try different things out. Hey, practice in the mirror, whatever you have to do. Use your personality. Don't go way out of your personality trying to say something that doesn't sound like you. But sometimes it might be a little bit uncomfortable because you're learning. And maybe you haven't set appointments before. You hadn't talked to people about that before. So that's important. I like the one back a couple of pages. I mean, it can be as simple as, hey, Bill, you got a mortgage, don't you? Yeah. Are you doing anything to add more equity faster to your home? And it doesn't matter if they say yes or no. If they say no, well, look, one of the things that I do is show people how to build more equity in their home faster. If they say yes, say, well, look, would you like to know how to possibly do it even faster than what you're doing? We've got some programs that show people how to do that. Just keep it simple, keep it basic. The one thing that I feel is this. There's not the perfect thing. If we knew the magic dust, we would all say the magic word. Everybody would have appointments and things. The worst thing that we can do is say nothing. Don't worry about trying to be perfect, folks. We're trying to help you to learn things that you could say, that you possibly put into something that you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be exactly word for word, or it can be word for word. But it's going to take a little practice, a little learning to do it. But the worst thing, again, is to say nothing. If you say something, you just increased your chances 50-50 of getting an appointment by saying something. If you did happen to say, I show people how to get out of debt. I show them how to pay off their credit cards and mortgages, in 1/3 to 1/2 the time. If that's what you say, or just anything that would get your interest, as long as it's in compliance. But open your mouth, say something, and you will learn along the way how to get better. So that would be my encouragement to you to do, and you'll have a lot more success by doing that.
Yep, and everybody, I apologize for the choppiness of the call. We are having some bad weather out here, and it's not just Steve, but I'm getting some notes that we're getting choppy as well. My voice is coming across pretty choppy. So I'm going to tell you what we're going to do is, we're going to finish out the call this evening, but Steve and I tomorrow, if he's feeling better and he's back in, we're going to go ahead and re-record this so you get all this information in a very clear and concise format. For those of you that have stayed on the call, thank you so much for bearing with us this evening. It's been a lot of I know it's come across choppy, but we'll make it right and make sure that we get that into the back office in a good in a good recorded version. I'm getting people coming in saying, "Great, well done, gentlemen." Even though it was choppy, asking for some other things. Can you please show example 1 again? Excellent, even though you cut out. So just let you all know. We will re-record this so we get a version up there that's just clean and concise. And David, I just want to let you know I'm not going to go backwards because of the time that we're at right now. We're already at 7:03, but we'll have that up and posted by no later than I would say Thursday. We'll have this call up and posted, and you can go back and review the call itself. So with that having been said, we're going to move into the last couple of slides. Keep it simple. Don't be a fire hydrant. Friends and family. These are people you already know what they do for a living, so how do you approach them? Well, at events like gathering and upcoming holidays, it's a real simple question to ask. What have you been up to? Just ask them straight. So what have you been up to? It's a great inline. And most people will reciprocate questions and be prepared with your commercials. So most people will say, oh, you know, I've been doing this and I've been doing that. And then they're going to come back to you and be that excited individual, that excited client, that excited agent. When they ask you in return, what have you been up to? You know, it's a great way to segue into it. And you're not really telling them anything. You know, I am the best I could possibly be. I found something that is changing our lives, my lives, our family lives, and then just jump into your commercial. Jump into your little 15-second commercial and begin your commercial and that introduction right there at that point. When you are with family and friends, when you're with other people, use the form method. This is really good to get information out of the client, to draw them out for what it is that they truly need. When the call form is family, occupation, recreation, and message. Now, you all have heard that before, but it really, really works. Ask somebody, how's your family been? So what are you doing these days? So are you working any sports? You're working out at the gym? And then deliver your 15-second commercial. Deliver if it's apropos. You may not get to your message because that doorway may not open. So don't force it upon the client, because now you get that commission breath, forcing, and they're like, oh, he didn't care anything about my family, occupation, and recreation. All he really wanted to get to was his message. And that will kind of defame you a little bit. Deliver the message as an aspect of your commercial, or be the excited client that you thought of them. You know, just say, look, I've really got to tell you something great's going on in my life. I just feel I need to share it with you. It's changing our family. It's changing my life. It's changing how we all come together with this. So what's next? Most people ask, what is that? Be prepared for this too. It usually follows up with, you need some kind of explanation. The Money Max Account program is a web-based, because they're going to eventually ask you, what is it, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. Financial GPS. It looks at income, debt, and monthly expenses and mathematically determines the fastest way for you to convert your debt into wealth given your unique financial situation. For example, tell your personal story. Remember, we went over that last week. My husband, partner, et cetera, and I are set to have our 29-year mortgage paid off in only 9.1 years. We're saving over $327,000 in interest and almost 20 years of payments. And we were able to do this without refinancing. Our minimum monthly payments remain the same, and there was no change to our monthly budget. Would you like to see if you qualify? Would you like to see if this is good for you? Would you like to see if you qualify? They then continue the conversation with asking them questions. See how they respond. If they respond positively to this, say, well, what is it that you like about what I said? You're drawing out that information. Steve said it the most concisely. If you're doing most of the talking, you're truly not selling. A true salesman, the best I've ever heard, know exactly when to be quiet, exactly when to listen to the client, and they remember those hit points from the client that are most important, and they key in on those with the 15-second commercial, with their personal story, with their qualifiers and tie-downs, which we're going to go through over the next couple months. So then continue that conversation with questions. Steve said this as well, listen and observe. You know, it's like Dr. Chris said, and I've said it, and Steve said it, truly listen to your prospects' responses and observe their body language. Look for them turning away from you to side, standing, or sitting if they've previously been facing you. In other words, if they repel, cross their arms, move away from you. If this is the case, typically they're a little bit put off by you approaching them, and now it's probably not the time to go any further. Change the topic, keep the relationship, keep everything good between you and the client. Don't force it on them. There's people out there that have been doing direct sales, and they are part of what is called the NFL club. And what that stands for is no friends left. And that's because everything they ever saw, everything that they ever got involved in was just the greatest thing they had ever seen. So don't over-sensationalize this product. Take it for the value that it is, what it is capable of doing to the client, and stay away from sensationalism. But conversely, if they come back to you and they, when you say your 15-second commercial, your personal story, or your little short of a debt buster, and they kind of straighten up or put their hand on their chin or lean into you, standing or sitting, where they're inviting you to tell them more. Be aware of people's body language. Be aware of spatial recognition of people around you. This is a big deal, and mold yourself. Steve, you said it last week. Be a chameleon, right?
That's right. You got to be a chameleon. You got to be willing to change.
So if you just stay in that one-set mindset, you'll never reach everybody. And the reality is you will never reach everybody. But if you have the ability to adjust and shift and change and allow these commercials and personal borrowed stories and all this to become organic, where it's just part of your conversation, that's where people will be the most enticed and people will be the most drawn in, because they will realize the credibility that you're bringing to the table, because you're not stuttering. You're not searching for the words. You're not looking for a way to convince them that one thing is better. So in summary, create your list of people you know and pick up the phone with a certified field trainer. Prospect on purpose and prospect everywhere. In other words, physically set up a time that you're going to go out and prospect, and set up a list of destinations that you're going to go to, and your intention is to meet people and prospect. That could be, and for some people that could be the shopping mall. For some people that could be the grocery store. For some people that could be the police station, the fire department. It could be the local high school. It could be going to a B&I meeting. It could be going to a social mixer. It could be going to the church business meeting that they have in the evening. There's so many different avenues where you can go out to meet people, but be intentional about what you're doing. Don't just be willy-nilly and if the conversation comes up, force it. Force it by asking them questions. Force it by putting it in position. Force it with the information that we've given you here of how to get their interest, how to get them engaged. Have 2 to 3 different commercials ready to start the conversation. Engaging, concise, be confident, good eye contact, solid handshake, practice on friends and family, listen and observe. Everyone you meet goes into your database. So if you get a business card from somebody, you get a phone number in your cell phone, you go back, you drop that into your database. As much information as you can put in there, notes about where you met them, notes about the conversation, maybe even notes about their family, what car they were driving, where you actually met them, so that when you do follow up with them, you have a context for where they were, what you talked about, and you can just blend right into that conversation. The other thing, it's going to tell that prospect, that individual, that you were really listening to what they had to say, and what they had to say matters. And people love to know that what they have to say matters, and that many times a person just needs to get something off of their chest so they have the ability to open that door. And then I'm going to hit you with it again, as we always do. Follow up, follow up, follow up on every single person you talk to, because the fortune is in the follow-up. Steve, you got any closing remarks for us, my friend?
No, we're going over. We need to let these good people go. Have a great week, and thank you all for attending this evening. Appreciate it, and have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you next Monday.
Sounds good, man. Let's get out there and do it big. Let's get out there and do it right, but at the very least, let's get out there and do something right now. This is Steve and Max saying bye-bye for now.
Good night, everyone.